I'll get into a position, whether it's lying down, sitting down, that I find comfortable, with the eyes closed, and just concentrate on, say, your ankles. As I'm breathing in and then breathing out, I feel that with each breath that I breathe out, that the muscle is being released, and then you just work your way up to the calves. But each time I breathe out, you're releasing your muscles into a relaxed position, and then just work your way up and just breathe in and out slowly and relax, and then I normally find that I drift off.
There are three main groups of pain-relieving techniques that can be used in labour. The first group are things like acupuncture, hypnosis and TENS, which work very well for some women, but for some women don't really work at all. Then there's a second group, which usually work and have a moderate effect. And a good example of this is the Entonox. That's a pain-relieving gas that you breathe in. It's very short-lasting, it wears off as soon as you stop, and has very little effect on the baby. Pethidine is a pain-killing injection. This lasts longer, but it can make the baby a bit sleepy when it's born sometimes, and this will then need treatment. If the pain is very bad, the only way which is guaranteed to relieve the pain in over 90% of women is the epidural, which is a pain-killing injection in the back. This is a more powerful technique, and therefore there are some side effects associated with it. These can include a bad headache for a few days after the delivery, an increased chance of a forceps delivery, or changes in the blood pressure which may need to be controlled. If, however, you have very bad pain in labour, then you may feel that the small risk of these side effects is worthwhile.
It's important to consider in advance the pros and cons of the various types of pain relief. When you're actually going through the pain, it won't be so easy to make decisions.
I had gas and air.
What was that like?
It made me feel, well, after she was born, it made me feel that I felt high. I couldn't remember some of the things after she was born, it sort of dragged me up a little bit.
I chose to have pain relief. I didn't want the pain. I thought I'd have what was going, and at the time what was going was Pethidine, which is that injection you had building up to the final stages of labour, and I think I had 3 injections of that over the long period of labour, and I had the gas and air as well.
So I went for the Pethidine, which didn't suit me at all. I felt very high, and I knew that I was having these really bad pains, and I just wasn't able to control myself. I couldn't think about doing all the exercises you're taught. So it was really unbearable. So 4 hours later, I decided, right, an epidural. And I slept for 3 hours as soon as I had the epidural. It was fantastic, absolutely marvellous.
Now, my first baby, I had an epidural. I never have it again. It was, I had too many stitches. It was, you just sort of go numb down. You can't feel anything. You can't feel the baby coming. So therefore I couldn't push and help the baby out, The second one, I didn't have anything at all.
So different women want different things, and what suits someone else may not suit you. The thing is to do what feels right for you at the time.
Yes, I'd like to have somebody in with me. A girlfriend of mine, she's coming in, and she offered to come in. My mother's offered as well, and quite a few other people have. But I wouldn't like to go through it alone if somebody was available.
Well, I've already, sorted out if my boyfriend should be there. But, he says he doesn't know if he can cope, because he doesn't really like the sight of blood, so if he passes out on me, he'll be to take over.
The actual birth was amazing, and I wouldn't have missed it for the world. I burst into tears, actually. It was amazing. It was a wonderful feeling, it really was. You don't feel as though you're doing anything. Some of the time I did get a lot of abuse from IDMI.
It didn't work.
I was expecting it in a way. We'd been told, that, so I was expecting it. But I felt absolutely helpless in some stages. But just being there was, apparently, it was very comforting to Melanie. And certainly I wouldn't have missed it for the world.
birth plan's a great thing. So you can write it down on paper, I don't want this, or if possible, I wouldn't like this, and I do want this, I'd like to be able to move around when I'm in labour, sort of thing, So I think it's a great idea, because the midwife will know exactly what you want.
It's good to have thought in advance about how you'd like your labour and your birth to go. What do you think about the routine use of technology? What positions you might want to use while you're in labour and giving birth? And then you need to discuss what you want with your hospital or midwife.
So things to cover in your birth plan might be, who do you want with you in labour? How do you feel about medical procedures, for example, the possibility of being induced? How would you like to be monitored? And whether you want to avoid the use of drugs. When you're considering drugs for pain relief, which ones you might prefer. What positions you might want to use during labour and birth. And what would you like to happen after your baby is born? For example, do you want the baby put straight to the breast? And would you like to be left in peace with your partner for a while?
You may find that when you've mentioned these things in the hospital that they say they don't normally do that. You can either accept that and think, well, they don't normally do it, so I won't have that while I'm in there. Or you might say, well, even if you don't normally do it, is it possible in my circumstances for that to be achieved? And if you are making special requests, it is important to document them. And again, I think it's important that you actually let somebody in a more senior position know, so that everybody's happy, and that when you come in labour, you're not actually trying to negotiate about your labour when you're in pain.
It was a different response to what I expected. I expected here we go, another one kind of attitude from them, but it was taken quite seriously, and I'm sure it was quite helpful to everyone. It must, on one aspect, make their job easier if they know exactly what the client, as it were, requires.
What it is that, I'm not saying sure myself, but how long maybe everyone always tells you you know. That's all, when you say that to someone, how do I know? You just say, you know? How you know?
As far as I can remember, even though I wasn't expecting to go into labour last time, I knew what was happening. Within the first half an hour or so, I really knew that was labour. And all the women say the same thing, You can't imagine, I can't imagine now what it's going to be like, but I know when it happens there'll be no doubt about it.
Normal labour can start anywhere between 37 and 42 weeks of pregnancy. And don't worry about having a baby before you have time to get to the hospital, it hardly ever happens. Most women know when they're in labour, and if you're in any doubt, you probably aren't, but ring the labour ward and speak to the midwife. A lot of women who are having hospital births find it much more relaxing to spend a good part of their early labour at home.
Very easy. I was very lucky. It was only 3 hours from start to finish, and I can tell you I wouldn't mind going through it again if it was as easy as it was this time. It was a very good birth, very easy. I think the strength of the pains shocked me a lot, because I didn't think. Everyone says labour is a very, very painful time, but you don't realise how painful. So that was a bit of a shock.
It was strange, actually, how on earth can 1 minute things are so painful and so crucial, and then next minute was calm. I found it strange, and I enjoyed the few minutes of calm. Really, those were really calm. They're probably only seconds, but they seemed like ages in between each contraction.
The thing is, the difference in your wife during the labour is quite dramatic. There are periods when you actually wonder if you're actually with the same person as you knew before. It was just pure amazement. Just the very fact that she should be able to do this thing, produce a child, And for a long time afterwards I thought she was the greatest thing on earth,
Well, I knew in advance I was going to have a cesarean, because my baby was coming bottom first, and it was assessed that he was a large baby, and that if I tried to have him normally there could be problems. So I had an epidural because I wanted to be awake and to sort of participate in his birth. I think it took quite a lot of courage, looking back on it, to do that, but I was very glad that I did. I can remember
the towels were put up in such a way that I couldn't actually see the blood or what was actually happening to my body. And I was aware of an odd tugging sensation somewhere in the middle of my legs. And the surgeon said, no, it's all right, Fran, I actually am operating on the right part of you. And the next thing I remember seeing was his legs sort of appearing above this green towel, and it was just the most fantastic experience, and I wouldn't have missed participating and witnessing that for the world. It was lovely. And then he sort of came over the top of this green towel and landed a sloppery mess in a mixture of my arms and John's arms. It was lovely.
We tend to think of labour as one single process, but in fact there are 3 distinct stages. In the first stage of labour, your contractions will gradually open up the cervix until it's wide enough to let the baby through. This takes on average 6 to 12 hours for a first baby and less for a second. In the second stage, the muscles of the womb contract to push the baby down the vagina to be born. For a first baby, this generally takes less than an hour. The third stage is after the birth of the baby, when the placenta comes away from the wall of the womb and is pushed out.
The breathing, I would say, is about the most important part of having a baby when you're going through, because I think if you can relax your body and breathe that way, it's great, because you don't seem to feel the pain as much. I don't think anybody who's tense, you would feel the pain a lot more. So it was a great help, that.
I don't think it's known really what the effect on the body is of that type of breathing and whether it has a direct beneficial effect. But I think for many women it actually enables them to feel that they're still in control of one part of their body while they're having this really quite serious pain. They can concentrate on their breathing and it can see them through the contraction. And once they're still able to think clearly about one part of their body, one function, it can actually help them overcome the pain that's going on inside their womb at that time. And for many women it's a very helpful technique, and they alter their breathing patterns depending on the strength of the contractions and can be very, very effective. But women shouldn't worry if they haven't been taught those techniques that they won't know how to breathe properly, because they will breathe properly and they'll probably adapt to their own patterns as labour progresses.
I said to the midwife and to the doctor, I'm going to scream, that's the way I know how to cope with the pain. I'm not dying, my pain threshold isn't higher or lower than anybody else's, it's just my way of coping. And they understood that, and in fact we all had a laugh about it, and I continued to scream.
The other way in which one can help herself in labour is actually to remember that she's not there to put on an expert performance, and that other people are not looking at her to see how good she is at labour, and that during labour she is allowed to become angry and frustrated and to shout and to be what may normally be described as unacceptable. And it's important to recognise that you may be like that in labour and not to worry about it if it starts to happen, because other people won't worry about it. So you can behave in whatever way seems appropriate to you, and for many women, maybe shouting or even making quite a lot of noise in labour can actually help relieve the tension inside their body, and that can help relieve the pain.
Many women find it comfortable to keep moving during the first stage of labour. You can try leaning forward against your partner or a wall, or leaning over a table. You can try sitting, facing the chair back, leaning onto cushions. A squatting position helps because it opens your pelvis to its widest. Lean forward, take your weight on your hands and rock gently from side to side. Or try leaning forward onto something like a low stool. Kneeling can be very comfortable with your head and arms on the seat of a chair or a bean bag. Kneeling on all fours is especially helpful if you get backache. If you want to lie down, lie on your side with pillows to support you. In the second stage of labour, pushing the baby out, any position is better than lying flat on your back. If you're flat on your back, contractions don't work so well, and at delivery there's a possibility that your blood pressure will drop and less blood will flow to your baby. Many women like to be on a bed, and if you do, you can sit upright or semi-upright, supported by pillows, or you can lie on your side. You may prefer to kneel, supported by your partner and the midwife. Or you may want to kneel on all fours. You may find that using a birthing chair, which many hospitals provide, is a good idea, or you may find that squatting is a comfortable position. You can't know in advance, of course, what positions you'll want to use, But it is good to know what the possibilities are. And when the time comes, ask the midwife to help you find the position which feels most comfortable for you. Stephanie wanted the birth of her baby to be as natural as possible. She and her husband Chris have been practicing the breathing and relaxation techniques and have been learning about the different positions for labour. She had a domino birth. That means that she spent the early part of her labour at home with visits from her midwife, whom she'd got to know during her pregnancy. She had the baby in hospital and then they were able to go home a few hours later.
I woke up about midnight with the first little twinges, so I went down to make myself a drink. They were coming about every 10 minutes, so I woke Chris up and we telephoned the midwife, who came along at about 3 o'clock in the morning. She examined me and said, "Don't worry, it's going to be quite some time," but advised me to go and have a bath. That was absolutely great. It was really nice. I spent about an hour in the bath topping up the water. Then the rest of the time we both walked around the house, made cups of tea, and Chris helped me with my breathing. The midwife came again about 7 o'clock in the morning and said that I was much further advanced by this stage. I thought I was as well because it was quite painful. And we went off to hospital just after 8 o'clock in the morning, in the rush hour.
In the delivery room, the midwives, Deborah and Ginny, have pushed the bed into a corner. Stephanie wants to be able to move around and change position during labour.
I was quite surprised at how much I actually felt the pain in my back. It felt like my back was splitting in half, and the massage was really helping to relax the muscles.
Look at me.
Lower down, Chris. Lower down, Chris.
Look at me. Please slowly. Please slowly. Just relax. Just put your feet first. Just put your feet first. That's right. That's all.
It seems so natural to be in a more upright position.
In the birth preparation classes I've been to, we did a lot of locking the pelvis, and you feel a bit silly at the time, but when it actually comes down to it, during labour, you feel that you really want to move with contractions, and it helps to ease them.
Stephanie has asked for Entonox to help her to cope with the contractions.
Sucking on that gas did help. It takes the edge off the pain. It doesn't take the pain away. It just helps you through the very difficult contractions. It makes you feel quite sort of floaty and slightly drunk. And then suddenly it begins to build up. The pain's coming, you can feel it. It's a bit like a sort of wave. It's going nearer and nearer and nearer and nearer the shore. It's really getting more and more painful. And I know sometimes when it's really bad, you feel that you black out for a minute or two, and then suddenly the wave comes crashing onto the shore, and it's over with.
You're alright. Stephanie, watch Ginny for a bit so I can give you a first penicillin. It's empty.
Oh, it's blood.
It's going to make a noise, huh? Steady. Okay, longer. Okay, look at me. What's do with it? It's gone now. It's gone now. You're feeling tired? It's not much longer, honestly. It's going to be amazing. I wonder what it's going to be.